Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Mama Atheist, but you can call me Amanda. So anyway, since Biden was elected our 46th president, I've been asked by a lot of people what I think about his cabinet picks and his climate policy. As vocal as Biden has been about climate change during his campaign, I feel like people expect me to praise his policy and completely support it. Well, I don't. It isn't that there aren't some good initiatives in his plan. Of utmost importance is America's re-entry into the Paris Climate Accord. Biden promises to rejoin on day one. A lot of his policies were influenced by AOC and Bernie Sanders, which is incredibly important and shows his desire to be progressive about the issue. But that really is the crux of the problem here. Biden is not progressive. In fact, as I've said before on this channel, Joe Biden is barely a Democrat. He is Republican light. Another issue is Biden's desire to find a middle ground and reach across the aisle to the GOP. This has been one of the biggest downfalls of the Democratic Party. We need to stop attempting to compromise with the Republicans, not on issues that are as important as climate change. They would never compromise with us, not for anything. In fact, they continue to travel farther right, diving deep into the conspiracy theory realm in order to hold on to their power. The fate of our planet should not be negotiable. Biden needs to make sweeping reforms throughout the energy industry. This idea of becoming net zero by 2050 is complete bullshit. The International Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, claims that in order to stop ourselves from tipping over the detrimental 1.5 degrees Celsius average temperature hike, we must reduce our carbon emissions by at least 7.5% globally every year until the year 2030. America already fell short of this goal in 2020, even in the middle of a pandemic when there should have been less travel and energy consumption overall. Biden needs to be as aggressive as possible. We need drastic change immediately, and what Biden is proposing is miles away from aggressive. So let's take a look at the people he's appointed to lead the fight against climate change. We will start with Representative Cedric Richmond, who has been appointed as Biden's head of his Office of Engagement. While Richmond is a Democrat, it is reported by The Hill that he has taken more donations from fossil fuel companies during his congressional career than any other Democrat. Placing him in a senior advisory position for the president is a worrying idea. Richmond can't help but feel beholden to the fossil fuel industry, and his positions in legislation will reflect that. Representative Richmond, a congressman from Louisiana, comes from an area of the country known as Cancer Alley, a stretch of corridor along the Mississippi River inundated with petrochemical plants. Cancer Alley has the second highest cancer rate in the country. Representative Richmond did nothing to fight against more plants being located in that area, even knowing the danger they posed. Richmond refused to help activist groups fight against Formosa's $9.2 billion plastic plant that was supposed to be built in his district. He even voted for the Keystone XL pipeline. Representative Richmond has been cozying up to big oil his entire career and ignoring environmental issues his own constituents have faced. Counting on him to choose what is better for the planet over the interests of big oil is just not an option. Another huge red flag for Biden's climate initiative seems to be the fact that his team is looking a lot like Obama's. Now, I am not going to discount what President Obama did for the environment. He's considered one of the most progressive presidents regarding the climate thus far. However, the Obama administration held many centrist points in order to compromise with the GOP, and therefore their policies were not strong enough to combat the effects of climate change. Biden has appointed Gina McCarthy as his climate czar. Once Obama's EPA head, McCarthy will oversee the Biden administration's environmental policy across governmental agencies. Now, Gina McCarthy was essential in rolling out Obama's Clean Power Plan. As you recall, this was the most extensive federal initiative to combat climate change ever, and Trump spent 3 years shutting it down. On the opposite side of that, McCarthy failed to do anything about Cancer Alley or Flint, Michigan's waters issue. McCarthy failed to step up and help Flint in their time of need, regardless of her powers as the director of the EPA. Jennifer Granholm, the new administration's choice for the Department of Energy head, is a perfect example of why Biden's picks from the Obama administration fall short. Another centrist, Granholm, is expected to work side by side with Detroit automakers in order to attempt to roll out more electric vehicles. Except during the Obama administration, the president himself, along with Granholm, made too many compromises with GM. He encouraged the companies to electrify their biggest, highest-selling SUVs. Luxury electric SUVs use batteries so large that the CO2 produced in making the batteries make them only slightly better for the environment than regular fuel-injected vehicles. We cannot trust Granholm to make the strides necessary to put a dent in the fight against climate change. One of the biggest issues with centrist Obama-era picks is that they care more about the economic value of a green economy than they do the actual fight to save the planet. Putting all of their focus into the money that can be made out of changing to more sustainable forms of energy means making compromises like they did with the auto industry. The same will go for infrastructure, carbon-reducing initiatives, clean energy, and more. We cannot compromise for the sake of economic growth. That will come with the shift into alternative energies and green technologies. But a net zero country is what we should be focused on foremost in the administration eyes, not money. We cannot discuss President-elect Joe Biden's climate initiatives without mentioning John Kerry. Biden created the new Special Presidential Envoy on Climate Change for Kerry, making him the international counterpart to Gina McCarthy. On the surface, Kerry appears to be a good fit for this job. He's fought against climate change in the past, 2 decades in fact. He famously signed the International Kigali Amendment, which effectively phased out hydrofluorocarbons. He negotiated the Climate Paris Agreement under Obama. Kerry even traveled to Antarctica to witness the devastation of climate change firsthand. But what has he really done in the decades as a politician to put an end to the crisis? As Secretary of State under Obama, again another Obama pick, he failed to pass the sweeping climate change reform bill in 2010. In 2013, he resisted pressure to fight against the Keystone XL pipeline. Kerry faces a great deal of difficulty building up our credibility with the rest of the world after 4 years of climate denial from President Trump. Yet he has a long history of failed negotiations abroad, including his failure to prevent Syria from crossing Obama's famous Red Line in 2013, as well as his failed Israeli-Palestinian peace talks in 2014. Much of his efforts abroad have been stalled, not to mention the fact that Kerry does not live the life of an environmental activist. Known for traveling in private planes and luxurious yachts, Kerry's lifestyle is not reflective of a person who wants to save the planet. While there are many reasons to have hope in Kerry's ability to fight for climate change, to make America a forerunner in the field, there are a plethora of reasons to doubt him. Playing centrist for the sake of compromise with the GOP will only hinder our ability to move forward. We need a substantial change and sweeping reform. We need to put our international reputation back in order, and I just do not see Kerry being the man for this job. Lastly, I'd like to take a look at President-elect Joe Biden's actual climate plan. I was excited to see that he had published something showing his knowledge of how important the issue of climate change really is. However, right away, Biden makes economic growth in the face of climate change a key issue. As you can see in the statement from Biden's official climate plan website, that his second basic truth at the core of his plan is to connect our environment and economy. Reading through the entire page, I see this theme come up often. It specifically says, if we can harness all of our energy and talents and unmatchable American innovation, we can turn this threat into an opportunity to revitalize the U.S. energy sector and boost growth economic worldwide. The problem with focusing on this more as an economic issue than a scientific one is that Biden will be forced to rely on energy companies for progress. Many big oil companies are seeing the potential in sustainables and are expanding their empires. However, we're still talking about negotiating with big oil, who will do whatever they can to keep their profits up, which means continuing to push for fossil fuel opportunities wherever they can, because they know that is where the real money lies. I also have a problem with the goals that Biden has laid forth. As you can see here, Biden promises to ensure the U.S. achieves a 100% clean energy economy and reaches net zero emissions no later than 2050. Again, I refer back to the IPCC's push to reduce emissions by 7.5% every year for the next decade. We can no longer look toward the future to fix what we have broken. We need aggressive action now, and planning to take 30 years for our country to become net zero is insufficient, to say the least. America needs to lead the global charge on the fight against climate change. We have the means and opportunity to do so, yet we lack the motivation. Biden must no longer invest in any fossil fuel infrastructure. I understand that fracking is a delicate topic, but he also needs to make a more aggressive policy to ban it outright. Biden's climate plan is considered the most aggressive of any American president, yet he faces insurmountable obstacles along the way, namely the GOP. Republican opposition in Congress is most likely to stall, if not outright kill, many of Biden's efforts to fight climate change. Biden's reputation of trying hard to find a middle ground with the GOP and not standing up for his own party's legislation is a glimpse of what's to come. Right now, we still don't know where the Senate will stand for the next 2 years as we await the January 5th runoff race in Georgia. I've already voted, obviously, for Warnock and Ossoff, but if they do not win, we are looking at least 2 more years of McConnell throwing away every Democratic-leaning bill put forward in the Senate. So where does that leave us in the fight against climate change? I don't know. I sometimes fear that we might be too late. There is so much to be done in order to fix what we have broken. I cannot express enough the aggressive reforms needed in order to combat this crisis. We need to be as close to net zero before 2030 as possible. We need to phase out fossil fuels immediately and start transitioning to sustainable energy as of yesterday. We need to be thinking globally to be working with the rest of the planet in order to combat this crisis. Anything short of that would be a failure, and I do not see Biden's cabinet picks nor his climate plan hitting those goals. As much as I want to believe that Biden will be our climate savior, I just do not see that happening. Hopefully, with people like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez working behind the scenes, we'll be able to see some change. But unfortunately, I do not hold out too much hope for this administration's ability to beat this crisis. Who knows, perhaps Biden will surprise us all. So let me know what you all think. Do you believe Biden will be able to clean up this mess that Trump left behind, but also be aggressive enough to truly fight the devastating effects of climate change? Until next time, don't forget, think critically.